All right, all you landlords out there, when should you sell a rental property? We're going to talk about that right now. So if there is a time to sell a rent property, when is that time? I want to talk about some milestones that might start planting the seed. Maybe it's time to sell. I also would like to talk about how to sell this property. And when I say how, I don't mean how do you call an agent or put up a sign for sale. I'm talking about what strategy are you going to sell under. Now, a lot of people would like to hold their property forever, but is there a for sure time to sell? We'll answer that question. And then there's always the personal reasons of why to sell, and we'll talk about some really personal reasons that's really, it's just up to you, but there's some strong considerations. There are at least two indicators that might give you the idea it's time to sell. One is your rental property fully depreciated out? Have you got all the tax benefit from that property that you can? Is it time to sell that property and reinvest in a new property that has appreciation and depreciation available to you still? The second little flag that would go up is, are we in a hot market? Can you maximize the sales price right now during this time? And if the answer is yes to both of those questions, then you might want to consider selling. After all, the strategy is buy low, sell high. If you decide you need to sell, do you want to sell for cash, or is it smarter for you to sell on payments? Now, this is a strictly personal decision, and it's probably a very individualistic answer to this. It has a lot to do with how much do you make at your regular income, how much profit are you going to make off this property when you sell it that you're going to have to add to your regular income, and what kind of tax bracket is that going to put you in when you do that if you take cash or full payoff for the sales price. The other way to do it, to avoid all that income in 1 year, is to sell it on payments. Seller finance this property to someone else. And here's the good thing. You're used to a monthly income from that rental property. This seller financed income, monthly income, is more dependable and more durable and stays static longer than rental income does. Rental income comes with liabilities. Air conditioner breaks tomorrow. That money you collected last month, guess what? It's not yours. It's the air conditioner man's. When you're receiving a mortgage from someone you seller financed, when that payment comes in for that mortgage, it doesn't matter if the air conditioner breaks or the roof leaks or the hot water heater goes down. It's not your air conditioner, hot water heater, or roof. Okay? This money is your money when you get it. It doesn't come in and go out like rent money. Rent money comes in, but there's a problem, you got to put it back out. Mortgage money comes in, stays. Period. And you can spread out your tax liability. Instead of taking a $100,000 profit all in 1 year and throwing yourself into a gigantic tax rate, you could say, you know, I'm going to just take payments. The payments are going to come in, going to be like $1,000 a month. I'm going to take this $100,000 over the next 12 years. Plus, you're going to get interest. The other thing about seller financing a property that you've owned for so long is that you know the property. If you get it back, you know more about that property than most people ever would. You know how to resell it or re-rent it. You know a lot about that property. You're very comfortable with it. The key is to get a substantial down payment from the next landlord that wants you to sell or finance him that property. Get a substantial down payment. The more money you collect up front from your buyer, whom you're going to sell or finance, the more solid this commitment will be. Just remember that. The bigger the down payment, the better off you are. Now you have to talk to your bookkeeper and your CPA. How big a down payment do you really want before you go to the next tax bracket? That might be where you would elect to take a little less down in some cases. But that's between you and your bookkeeper and your CPA. So we've talked about seller financing and how you can defer the income over a lot of years. But there's also a way to postpone or defer the profit indefinitely. It's called a 1031 exchange, which is basically a set of rules and regulations that will allow you to exchange one property for another property and just roll the whole profit without having to pay income tax on it into the next deal. Here's the problem with 1031 exchange. You're selling because the market's high. The problem with the 1031 exchange is you have to buy another property within a pretty reasonably short period of time, 30, 60, 90 days, I don't remember exactly, but you've got to buy something now, so you're selling during the high time, but you have to buy during the high time. It's a bit of a catch-22. You want to sell in the high time, but you don't want to buy in the high times. So when you do a 1031 exchange, you have to buy something pretty quick. And high market is not good when you get on the other side of that 1031. So 1031 exchanges work best if you find some kind of distressed property before you decide to sell a 1031 your property that you've had for a long time. That's how it works best. You have to work it backwards. 1031 says you decide to sell a property, and then you have to go out and identify a bunch of properties, and then you have to close on one of them within a certain period of time. And I say, technically that's the law, but you should work it in reverse. You should find the property you want to buy. Then you should decide to go over and put your long time held property up for sale as a 1031 exchange, and you already know where you're going. And that way the time frame doesn't hurt you, because you can spend a lot of time trying to find a distressed property in high economic times. There is one other way I know, and it's called a tax-deferred trust. And I have done podcasts and YouTube channels on that. I'm not going to go into it today because typically to be able to afford a tax-deferred trust, there has to be at least $500,000 worth of profit in the deal, if not $1 million, because it's very expensive. But when you're in that league, a tax-deferred trust can save you a fortune. So it doesn't matter that you had to pay $20,000, $25,000, $30,000, $50,000 to get this trust developed. If it saves you $500,000, hey, write the check. So if you're interested in more information on tax-deferred trusts, just click on the link in the description and I'll get you some stuff I think you'll find very beneficial and very eye-opening. Because you know what? It also works for things and income other than real estate income. Like if you have $1 million commission coming for something, if you get ahead of the curve and plan for this ahead of time because you know it's coming, you may be able to even defer the tax on $1 million commission on anything, not just real estate. So check it out. It's very powerful. Is there a for sure time to sell? Heck yeah, there is. If it's a pain in your butt and you're tired of it, it's for sure time to sell it. If it's causing you problems, let's get rid of it. Move on. Life is too short. So if it's really a problem, if it's really causing you stress, if you're sick and tired of it, you don't have to be sick and tired. Let's just move on. That's the time to do it. And that's really one of the personal reasons why you would sell. But there's lots of other personal reasons. Maybe you just want to be free. Maybe it's time for you to travel the world. Maybe you've done this long enough and it's time to retire. Maybe you need the money for something that's important to you or your family. There's a lot of personal reasons. But here's one thing a real investor knows. If you need to make some changes or sell one of your assets today, there is another deal tomorrow and another rent house tomorrow and another apartment complex you can get in tomorrow. If you need something or want something today that's important enough to you, then liquidate something and get it done. If you need to get an asset back or replace that asset, there's another deal tomorrow. Every successful real estate investor knows there is another deal tomorrow if you need one. Thank you for following me all the way to the end of this episode. I think you've been great, and therefore I'm going to give you a free digital ebook from Tax-Free Future, one of the sponsors of this YouTube channel, and it's got a lot of information of how you can operate tax-deferred or tax-free. Please believe me, there's a reason why the rich are rich and the poor have the same opportunities as the rich. You just got to start thinking and studying to be wealthy, and this is part of that. Learning how to mitigate your taxes. Check it out. There's also 37 little video vignettes at taxfreefuture.com. I interview a tax attorney, and it's very eye-opening. My favorite parts are how you take little bitty pieces of money and grow them into big chunks of money in a relatively short period of time. There are strategies. They work for you, and they'll work for me, and they'll work for anybody. But you got to learn about them. Taxfreefuture.com, or go to 1000houses.com and scroll down till you see the free Tax-Free Future ebook. Click on it and it'll be digitally downloaded in a few seconds. All right, this is Mitch. Glad you were here. I'll see you at the next episode.